So Saint Maud was officially released in 2019, but didn't get like a wide release in the United States until about 2021. And this was at one point one of the most anticipated films that I was waiting for the longest time. And that in itself was one of the biggest disappointments because I saw this running through really minimal festivals in the UK for quite a while, and it was doing really well. Like we're talking in the 80s and 90s on Rotten Tomatoes, and IMDb scored it really high as well. And the trailer for this film just blew me away. It's my kind of horror, it's my kind of style. It looked grim, bleak, dark, really well acted. The cinematography looked legendary. And I was just, counting down the days basically and trying to find anywhere that would be playing this film. And it literally took like 2 years to get a wide release, a wide enough release to be able to find it anywhere. And yeah, so it really had a slow start in its distribution, but finally got a chance to watch it. And it pretty much, for the most part, lived up to the hype. I really like this movie. It's extremely dark and depressing. The story is very grim and very bleak, which I expected already going in. But yeah, they're not kidding around with everything they display in the trailer and everything they set up the film to be, basically. In a nutshell, basically, you have this girl who, at the beginning, they suggest something tragic happening to her, but they don't go into any detail whatsoever. But this girl takes on sainthood, basically, and she calls herself Saint Maud. Her actual name is Katie. And this woman is and was a basically a healthcare worker. So she worked with the elderly, she worked with sick people, and still does. And currently, as a saint, she works one on one, like personal health care at people's homes. And during her sainthood, she's caring for this woman named Amanda, who is 49 years old and dying of cancer. And she's basically her personal caretaker throughout the film. And we get a little bit more backstory as she goes through. She's dealing with slight doubts, slight questions. She sometimes questions her faith. She's obviously dealing with a lot of dilemmas supernaturally, I guess, or what she thinks is supernatural. She's you. The movie obviously blends with what's real, what's not, and goes back and forth with making the audience question what's real and what's not. Obviously, because this is exactly what the character is also dealing with herself. And I don't know why I'm getting so much glare right now, but I'm going to try and ignore that. There we go, that's a little better. So yeah, it's basically us inside her head going through this whole thing, but she's also, like, she's a converted strong Catholic. She's converted into sainthood. She wasn't always, and she even runs into friends throughout the film that knew her previously, and wonder how she's doing and see her in a different way, and are wondering, if this is good or bad for her and whatnot. But anyways, getting into a little bit more detail, the film opens up with a shot where she's basically just sitting in a corner in what looks like it looks like a coroner's cellar or something like that. But then the film starts, and there's lots of grim music. The cinematography is so beautiful. And the film opens up basically of her going into this woman's house, Amanda. Amanda was a dancer, and she's American. She's living in, where does this take place? I think Ireland, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, it takes place all in Ireland. I know it's the UK, obviously, but maybe Wales. It could be Wales because there is moments in the film that there's a voice in Maud's head that speaks in Welsh. So it could be Wales, but it's one of them. Anyway, she's going to this woman Amanda's house who was a former dancer and now is very ill, stage 4 cancer, and basically just does the best she can to care for her. And Amanda is she's not faithful, but she's not at least to start, like at the beginning of the film in the first act, she's not super against religion either. She's just very, very neutral and doesn't know what to believe. Really, she's just you know spending the last excuse me, the remaining years of her life as best as she can, I guess. Um, the saint that Maud, I'd say, worships or follows, or she calls herself Saint Maud, but her saint she mentions very specifically is Mary Magdalene. And for anybody who knows the Christian and Catholic faith, Mary Magdalene is like the promiscuous, shunned saint that, you know, did things in a sexual nature that was kind of forbidden or shunned and stuff like that. That's like the whole background of Mary Magdalene, with the whole Jesus came and said, "Thou who never sinned shalt cast the first stone," when they all wanted to stone Mary Magdalene to death for being a huge slut back in those days. So that's Mary Magdalene's story, and it is fitting with Maud because she's fully into celibacy now that she's found religion. And as we get this tragedy revealed, we obviously feel a lot. We feel that Maud's suffering a tremendous amount of guilt because this tragedy involved the death of somebody that she was caring for, and she blames it completely on herself. So she's dealing with these demons and diving into religion as best she can, to basically save herself and save her soul as she sees it. There's a scene with a homeless man on the street, and she notices him. He's asking for change, and he has a stutter. He kind of looks like he has Tourette's, and he asks somebody for change, and he's stuttering, and then they say no, and he's like, "Well, fuck off then." So he basically tells everybody to fuck off if they don't give him change. But Mary Magdalene goes to give him some money, and she's like, "May God bless you and never waste your pain." And then she just turns around and very awkwardly walks away. He's like, "Excuse me, what?" And she's like, "Nothing." Just walks away like all like nervous and shy, which is funny because she should, like, you would assume she'd be all into her religion and like want to stay there and be proud of it, but she has this kind of shame going on with it too, kind of like a novelty thing. Like, her faith is very new to her, but at the same time it seems like she just converted yesterday almost. Like, she has this very back and forth struggle between who she was and who she wants to be. And throughout the film, it's very, very apparent, especially when you get like visions and stuff like that. She makes it very clear that, because she has a conversation with Amanda, and Amanda asks her if she hears God, and she does mention like sometimes he speaks, sometimes he talks. She says, and then she mainly says that he's like a presence that flows through her, and she can feel him physically, especially when she prays. There's a lot of narration and there's a lot of monologue throughout this film of her praying. It almost sounds like she's writing in a diary, but it's her prayers that she prays to God when she's alone. And she definitely makes it very apparent that God is a physical presence inside her body. So as this starts to come out, it starts to get like darker and darker and more sinister and more disturbing, to the level that Maud or Katie takes it to, which always makes for extremely interesting horror. There's a scene where she's climbing the stairs and she can already feel his presence, and the way the cinematography is done with the shot, the angle, and the music, and just the color palettes, like just how everything starts to kind of blur in a very, very subtle way. It's very interesting, and her reactions are almost like a sheer mix of pain and pleasure. It's very, very strange. The actress delivered it like incredibly well. I'm gonna see if I can look up her name again. Morphiad, Morphied Clark, Morphid. I don't know. Morphied Clark. How about I spell it? Morfyod Clark. So that's the main actress. She's amazing. She's popped up here and there before, but in this role, she's like caliber, like top notch, top tier, sheer class acting. And she delivers that disturbing, like disturbing mental presence really, really well. Like really well, in my opinion. There's a scene in the kitchen where it's actually really funny. She confronts one of Amanda's love interests, which is another woman, and she brings her to the kitchen and she starts to tell this woman named Carol, that Maud is insisting that she doesn't see Amanda anymore because Amanda is in a very vulnerable position where she's basically dying and she doesn't need to have her heart ripped out right now because Carol is very she's not the most appreciative of Amanda. She's a very selfish person, it seems anyway, and Maud definitely is very protective of Amanda and being, her religion and everything. And Carol's basically like, you're her nurse and her sex life is none of your business, so just basically fuck off. And Maud stops her and she's like, I don't care if you have an 8-inch cock, for all I care. If you did, I'd be telling you the exact same thing. I just want you to leave her alone. It's funny hearing Maud say cock. That's why I laughed. But yeah, she was badass, man. She like really put Carol in her place. I found that scene really funny, and the fact that she's very concerned of Amanda's feelings. Obviously, this comes to bite Maud in the ass because during a birthday party for Amanda, she figures out what Maud did, and Carol kind of spills the beans, and then Amanda has this confrontation, I would say, with Maud, where Maud ends up slapping Amanda in the face. It's pretty sad. This is where she also loses her position, and once she loses her position, her faith and her doubts in everything she's dedicated her entire life to recently starts to really, get into her head. Now, in the middle of the film, Maud decides to spite God, as she puts it, and she goes out to a pub and she has her hair down and she's ready to, mingle. And it's, I always say this all the time, whether people agree with me or not, it's extremely easy for any young lady to just go out and get sex if they want sex. It is. It's just a fact. And she does, and she sits there, and throughout the night, she ends up giving a guy a handy. And then just going back to her seat, she turns around to this other group of people and she's like really awkwardly trying to join their laughter. And they're laughing back and forth and they don't know who she is, but she's like kind of leaning in there. She's like, and then she ends up going home with another guy and banging him. But there's never really a point where it seems like Maud is actually enjoying it. She almost like is almost going through like routines. She gives the dude the hand job and she's like almost doing it as like a favor, like something she's not really caring about, something she just feels she's supposed to do or obligated to do, or I don't know, like she went out with the intention of getting laid. That's clear. So the fact that she got into two situations willingly, but then regretted them. I don't know. It was strange. The second guy, the guy that she actually went home with, was weird because he then starts to like mention that he recognizes her and he used to know her from back in the day and that apparently she banged one of his friends and she's like, yeah, I remember you, and that got really awkward really fast. But I don't know, and then she's drinking her beer, and then there's a funnel inside the beer, like it turns into a tornado, and then she gets up, and all the other beers are doing the same thing, and this is where she's clearly starting to have some hallucinations, and whirlwinds and tornadoes are a big hallucination that she ends up having throughout the film, which I found pretty cool as a stylistic choice. Made a lot of sense. She obviously starts seeing Amanda with her new caretaker because she got a new one after Maud was fired. And this brings her down again and brings her into her emotions and her doubts and her. And as she starts to get more emotions and doubts towards God, she starts to get way more hallucinations and they start to become stronger. There's a scene where she like punishes herself by cutting her hand. I think she cut it anyway. She just has a big gash on her hand and she keeps picking at it. This is like before she goes out to that pub. And then after the pub, there's this like fireworks scene where she's having like a level 10 panic attack and there's just voices and things everywhere and she projectile vomits everywhere. She just barfs like all over the place. There's a flashback too as well. I don't know if it's exactly in this spot, but she flashes back to that point where she accidentally killed a person while she was trying to revive them. That's the thing. She takes out all she puts all the guilt on herself 100%, but she was trying to save somebody's life, and while doing so she accidentally broke their ribs. How? I mean, it's possible, but also a rib cage is pretty damn strong, and her arms don't look that big. But yeah, she was doing the Heimlich maneuver, and she like broke their ribs and killed them. And she has this vision while she's having sex with that guy that she brought home from the bar, and it, all these scenes come like flying back at her all at once in certain points of the movie, and it's really really shot well and displayed well. That's what I love about it, how well it's displayed. And yeah, eventually, like, she just continues to punish herself. She puts spikes in the soles of her shoes so she can like walk and prick her feet as she's walking as punishment to herself. And the climax of the movie is the very end of the movie is one of the best endings I've seen for a film like this. And the climax of the film is also very, very well done in leading the audience where the movie wants to lead the audience. So there's a scene where she's imagining angel wings on herself, which look beautiful. They are CGI and they are, but they're so angelic looking and they're so mesmerizing. And this is where the film starts to go from bleak and like dark, shadowy cinematography to very bright and lots of whites and pinks. And it tests the audience. It's like, is Maud right? Is she actually, has she discovered sainthood? Is she saved? Like you're almost borderline there. You know what I mean? For a film that's been carrying you to like the delusion side of things and the schizophrenia psychosis side of things. It kind of questions the audience. Maybe this is actually happening. Maybe so. She imagines wings on herself, and then she starts to create these big jugs of hydrogen peroxide or some really flammable substance. And then she goes to the beach in this white dress, and she's walking very casually, and then she stands in the middle of the beach and she pours that stuff on her, and then you slowly see people walking up to her like, what's wrong with this woman? And you hear like faint voices in the background like, somebody stop her, she's gonna do it, no, take that away. They see a light on her, on a lighter, sorry, on her. And her last words in Welsh are glory to God as she lights the lighter. And then everything stops. Like everything just, she has this smile and everything starts to glow, and the people start to bow down in front of her, and she starts to almost like have this beautiful angelic face. And this is the point where you're like, holy shit, are they going to save this girl? And then 0.5 seconds, no joke, it just goes from beautiful angelic to and her on like flames, full flames, all black background, like she literally just dove into hell. And then credits, like less than a second. It's just full flames, fully on fire, fully burning to death, dark, from 100 to 0 in 0.5 seconds. Really, really fucking disturbing stuff. It's not an easy watch, and it's not a film that you want to rewatch, that's for sure. But it's an experience, and it's a hell of a film to uncover, and it holds its rewatch value in the fact that you can always discover new things in it. Amanda's a very complex character. I forgot to mention her death too, where again, obviously my conclusion is the fact that Maud was hallucinating full blown at that point and actually murdered Amanda, because I don't believe Amanda was a demon or a devil. But I can tell Maud that, especially at that moment where Amanda started to throw the doubt in Maud's face, whether even Maud was there or not. She definitely was there to murder Amanda, and she definitely murdered Amanda. But how much of that conversation actually happened, that's left for discussion. Maybe she just walked into Amanda's house and immediately murdered her. Maybe she opened the door and already saw the demon face and just started stabbing her to death, and there was no conversation whatsoever. So that whole 5-minute conversation about her trying to put holy water on Amanda's head and Amanda refusing it and saying that God's not real and that you have to know this by now, honey. Maybe that conversation didn't happen. Maybe that was all in Maud's head, and that was all a fever dream that Maud had. But certainly the murder was real, and certainly Amanda definitely wasn't seeing it coming because that's my 100% conclusion. Outside of the whole other conversation going on. But yeah, it's a film to unpack, and that's what I love about this film and these kinds of films is that there's always stuff to unpack because it's left ambiguous for the most part, and it's not like overbearing. It's not overly long. It's only an hour and 24 minutes, and it's just really interesting if you like bleak religious horror. You know, horror and religion blends really well. You can definitely create a lot of controversial and sinister things when you blend those two themes together. And I just really love when cinema does it well, like this one right here. So, strong recommend if you know what you're getting into. Definitely know what it is and what kind of film it is. And if you do, and if you're into that, this is a strong recommend for sure. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd, and I probably give it. Uh, No, I didn't give it a 4 stars. I gave it a 4.5. So yeah, I was thinking about that. I think I give it like an 86 out of 100. Why out of 100? Because I hate decimals. And 4.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. Yeah, that was it. I forgot. Subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you like to listen to my voice or if you like my film reviews, and I'll be back with more soon. Watch what's on the channel. Subscribe if you're interested. And until next review, take care and cheers.